This is the brand new BMW X2 model, and it's the German marque's attempt to put the sport back into the sports utility vehicle. Well, at least the compact crossover sector, as we seem to be calling it these days. Based on the X1 model, the X2 has a lower profile and a revised front kidney grille, announcing BMW's intention to target the younger end of the market. I particularly like the BMW badge embedded into the C-pillar, harking back to BMW coupes of old. However, unlike those other sporting X models, the X4 and the X6, the X2 has a freshness about it, sharper, unadulterated flanks and a neat, almost cut-off rear end that gives the X2 an athletic stance that should certainly attract younger buyers, if the pockets are deep enough though. After all, prices start at just under £30,000 for the front-wheel drive 2-litre petrol model. So, what do you get for your money? Inside the X2 it's all very familiar, especially if you've ever sat inside the larger X1. And yeah, that's right, the X1 is slightly larger in the body and has a slightly larger boot. But don't panic, because there's still as much space in the X2 as there is in the X1. In fact, there's not much less space than in the X3. But what all models have, of course, is BMW's intuitive iDrive system, with the M Sport getting an upgraded 8.8-inch screen. And just as accessible is the driving mode switch, which lets you choose from Eco, Pro, Comfort and Sport modes. It's typical BMW in here too, with everything being driver focused, and I like the way that this dash comes out and faces the driver as well. And of course the materials are all top quality. The only place that you might find a little bit of cheap plastic is down here in the centre console, but that's about it really. And I love the feel of this M Sport steering wheel too. Let's see if things are just as impressive in the back. In the rear you'll find plenty of space. In fact, there's enough space to tuck your feet under the seat in front. Headroom pretty good for a coupe as well. And the materials, well, it continues from the front of the car. The quality is excellent. The central position, as you would expect, isn't quite as comfortable. It's definitely more upright, and there's not as much room for your feet either, with this central tunnel intruding somewhat. I do like the storage space in the back of the front seats. Let's have a look at what the storage space is like in the boot. At 470 litres, the X2 is 35 litres down on the X1 when it comes to boot space. However, there is handy storage beneath the boot floor where you could hide your laptop or any other valuables, as well as numerous tethering points around the boot and a handy 12-volt socket as well. The rear seats have a useful 40-20-40 split, leaving a nice flat load area of 1,355 litres. The first thing to hit you when driving the new BMW X2 is just how much more sporty than the X1 it feels. And that of course is the whole point of the X2. For a start, this seat is set 20mm lower than in the X1. So you don't get that perched up high feeling that you do in conventional SUVs. And if you feel quite disappointed with that thought, then perhaps the X2 isn't for you and you'd be better off sticking with the X1. But if that thought appeals to you, sitting in a slightly more sporty position, then the X2 could be right up your street. For instance, the steering. It feels very well weighted indeed. Even in comfort mode, there's plenty of feedback through the wheel and none of the floatiness that you find in lesser SUVs and crossbacks. In sports mode, there's even more feel, and thanks to the smoothness and magic of the speed-sensitive Servotronic system, you won't be getting your arms jolted out of the sockets every time you hit a pothole, which of course you will do eventually. The 2-litre diesel's electronic diff and torque vectoring also helps the X2 achieve its sporting ambitions by providing just the correct amount of grip on whichever corner needs it the most and makes you feel like you really know what you're doing. The 8-speed auto gearbox orchestrates everything beautifully as well, and without drama, allowing the 180 brake horsepower 4-cylinder diesel to shine, while the X-Drive system encourages you to push on a little bit quicker than perhaps you really should, especially around the corners. Refined and effortless are two words that spring to mind when talking about how this new BMW X2 gets down the road. Refined because, well, it is pretty quiet in here, apart from some tyre roar from those 19-inch wheels. But it is effortless because the X2's drivetrain does such a good job of making it look like the world's best driver. It's pretty quick too. 0 to 60 is just 7.7 seconds. And that's quicker than an Audi Q3 2-litre TDI. The new X2 is a hugely important model for BMW as they try to tap into the lucrative younger end of the SUV market. Oh, sorry, that should be sports activity coupe market. With its fresh new looks, excellent driving dynamics, that premium interior and that blue badge on the front.
And the sides.
Oh, well yeah, and the sides. Then you think they'd be onto a winner, wouldn't you? But Bavarian quality and kudos doesn't come cheap. This M Sport model, for instance, comes in at just over 43k. So it remains to be seen how many under 30s who are in the market for a compact SUV, a sports activity coupe, are going to forsake the likes of Ford, Kia and Hyundai just to have the privilege of that blue and white badge on the keyring. Most potential buyers of the BMW X2 will already be in the Jaguar E-Pace, Mercedes GLA or Audi Q3 bracket. You know what though, the BMW X2 could be an all-round better alternative to the original sports activity coupe, the Range Rover Evoque. And I strongly suspect that's what the X2 was all about all along. So what do you get for your money? Inside the X2 it's all very familiar, especially if you've ever sat inside the X1 model, which is slightly larger. Do that again. Hang on. So what do you get for your money? Well, this X2... So what do you get for your money? Well, inside this BMW... I've looked down at my nose. So what do you get for your money? Well, it's all very familiar inside here, especially if you've ever sat inside the X1. Tony! So what do you get for your money? Well, in this X2 model, you'll find there's not quite as much room. So what do you get for your money? Well, I don't know.
I could feel your soul break then. I could see it. I caught it on camera.